Hey, what's happening, my fellow YouTubies? Welcome back to the channel of Mike the Great Studios. Today I will be giving a ranking of all 20 Stranger Things characters. This is the biggest video project that I've done in a while, and I'm pretty excited. If you like this video, I also did at least a couple of other Stranger Things content. I did a ranking of all the seasons, and I did a review on Season 4. And if you really like this video, you can like and subscribe to my channel, or even leave down in the comments your top 10 Stranger Things characters, or if you wanted to, put in your top 20. Now, with all that said in mind, let's get into the video. So coming in last place for me is gonna have to be Erica Sinclair. And she's only really been presented as Lucas's annoying little sister, and then somehow in season 3, where she really got involved in the story, she just ended up becoming more annoying. Just with everything that's going on with the story and the Demogorgons and all that, she's just whiny a little bit, too bratty, has come off with a little bit of an attitude, and not too helpful and involved in the story. And she's really not gone any farther beyond that. She's really not been given this big character development. So I haven't really liked Erica all that much on the show. So for me, she easily comes in last place. At number 19 is Argyle. Now, there's not much to it that I can say about Argyle besides the fact he was only known mostly as just one of the big standout characters of season 4. But he wasn't really there to give us a character that we can engage in. He was mostly used in there for comic relief and not put into the season for anything else. I mean, even though it was nice having him on the series for season 4, he was a little bit more in the upfront standout than Jonathan was. But there wasn't much to Argyle that I can say about him. At number 18 is going to have to be Murray, and he's this low on the list almost for the same reason as Argyle, except he is a little bit more involved in the story. We do get a little bit more comic relief with him, Hopper, and Joyce, and he is helpful like on their adventures in seasons 3 and 4, but not really much character development inside of him. The only ways in which he's interesting is when he is on these journeys with either Joyce or Hopper and trying to figure some of this stuff out. It's nice that he is involved more in the story, and when he's doing some stuff like handling with the Russians and all that, and the fact that he speaks Russian. But again, not really much development with Murray, except he does give me a lot of enjoyment on the show. At number 17 is Kali, or in other words, 8. And she was okay as one of these additions to season 2. I like the way she played out into Eleven's backstory, and with her being her sister, and like how she had the other way that she handled Dr. Brenner experimenting on her, how she treated the trauma between her and her mother. But for me, her personality just didn't pop out. Standing out on her own, she isn't as interesting beyond that, especially because she hasn't shown back up in these last 2 seasons. So if they could like pull together her story a little bit more in throughout the rest of the series, I think I would have her a lot more higher on the list. But they weren't really able to develop her beyond just that one episode. At number 16 is Billy Hargrove. In season 2, he's really only presented as this jerk with this sort of rival between Steve, Max's jerky big brother. But in season 3, they gave us a lot more depth to this character, especially having him presented in as the main villain of the season. And even the big heroic sacrifice that they gave him at the end, it really added in some length to this character and like made him somebody that I can care about just a little bit more. Somehow they were able to make us care a little bit more for that relationship between him and Max, and instead of him just being this punk bully that we just knew him as in season 2. But that was pretty much all the development that he was given in, mostly in season 3. But I mean, since he was killed off, I feel like he was killed off pretty soon. There's not much more that I could say about him, so can't really put him any higher on the list. At number 15 is Jonathan Byers. And I know it kind of feels cruel for me to have Jonathan this low on the list because I know he is one of the show's main protagonists, and I really liked the start off journey that they set up in season 1. He's taking all the risks that he can to find his brother, and I even like the relationship that they were setting up with him and Nancy. But his journey has really been pushed down to the side, like stuck in that same spot for like the last like 2 or 3 seasons. Like he hasn't gone anywhere far off that development besides the relationship with him and Nancy, especially even when Nancy is out of his life in season 4. He's really not doing anything besides doing drugs and getting high, and he's not really put in the interesting mode, like only unless Argyle is on the screen. So for me, given to the fact that his journey has really been stuck in that spot for like 2 or 3 seasons, I can't really put him anywhere higher on the list. At number 14 is Dr. Martin Brenner. He is responsible for so much that has occurred throughout the entire show. He's the guy who experimented on Eleven, is responsible for so much that occurred in her life. He's responsible for forging in this monster, Vecna Henry, that is the main big bad out of the entire Stranger Things series. And I really liked what they were doing with him in season 4, even bringing him back, showing us why he's doing is that he thinks that he's on the side for the right, controlling these little kids, managing these kids with mutants with like super capabilities, and the relationship with him and Eleven, I think, was bridged like a whole lot better than it was in season 1. But they only brought him in just for the same deal that they were doing in season 1, with him experimenting on these kids and him bringing Eleven back into that same plan that he was doing before. But as far as him being in season 1, being taken out, faking his death in seasons 2 and 3, and then him making his return in season 4, there wasn't really much to that. So, not one that I could really say I enjoy as much. Next up is Robin Buckley. And I like the way they were introducing us to her in season 3, connecting that relationship between her and Steve, and how she's on the track like with that girl that she was in love with, and learning a little bit of her story. But in season 4, I think her performance was played a little over the top, with her being overreactive to everything that's going on in the story. It felt like the character that we were watching in season 3, it felt like there was a little bit of a swap around with this overreactive girl, with everything that's going on. But the role that she played in season 4, I still really enjoyed. But when she's on her own story, like, it's not something as compelling as whether it's in that relationship between either Nancy or Steve. Will Byers, the missing boy of all of season 1. He is the main plot line of all of season 1. But not much development that he was given in those first 2 seasons, mostly because he was played into the role of the story to fit in with the Demogorgon plotline and all that stuff. In season 1, he was missing for almost the entire season. In season 2, he is possessed. And then in season 3, we start to finally get into that relationship side of things, how he's reacting, like growing up and getting into that flip side of things. And in season 4, learning a little bit more about development, how he feels between that relationship with Eleven, where he's given that friendship with Eleven. But his performance, he's always been overplayed as that little whiny, like, crying boy. I feel like he's given just a little bit too emotion, but with not as much screen time to stand out for it. So even though he's been given the most relationship development, I feel like his development doesn't go as far beyond that. At number 11 is Nancy Wheeler, and this is a character that I did not like for a little majority of season 1. Literally, like, she just disregards her friend. While her friend is getting attacked by a monster, she is in there smooching it up with Steve. I just wasn't enjoying her character all that much. And then they were improving her by giving her a little bit more depth and, like, showing that she has a little bit more care for her actions, like setting up that relationship between her and Jonathan, even bringing in back that relationship with her and Steve, and all that stuff plays out. But just not a character that I always took enjoyment out of. Beyond that, even like though she's been given like the most emotion, the most of her story to stand out, and she's probably one of the strongest female leads, other than Eleven, out of the entire season, especially in season 4. But just not a character that I always found likable throughout the series, especially because she was given probably some of the least interesting plot lines in seasons 2 and 3. Bringing us into the top 10 is Lucas Sinclair, and I really loved Lucas in season 1. Out of the 3 friends in the party, he was the funniest. The way he was responding to everything that was going on with Dustin or Mike and being out on this adventure, he was a standout. And then in seasons 2 and seasons 4, he was given a lot more of like he was put a lot more into the emotional side of things with that relationship with him and Max, and just giving him a love interest. And he was just given a whole lot more development and a whole lot more story, especially in season 4, with him being on that side of like getting out of that zone of being in the weirdo with the weirdos party, him being on the basketball team, trying to set up that good reputation, and him finally coming into that circle like, these guys are my friends. Like, no matter how strange you are, you have to support, like, these guys are your family, dude. And just setting up, like, into that final act where he's just beating the heck out of the other basketball player, and just setting up, like, that full-fledged relationship with him and Max just made a whole lot more interesting. He's not as interesting in season 3, but still a great character. At number 9 is Vecna / Henry / 1, the main villain of the entire Stranger Things series, and most specifically season 4. And I really loved how they were able to give him a lot of development in only those last couple of episodes, while still having this big villain reveal at the same time. And they made him in a way where we hate this guy. We want him to be stopped. And he just served for a great villain in those last couple of episodes. And just knowing his backstory, how he was different from some of the other children, and how he wanted to create his own title for himself, made his own friends, his enlightenment and spiders and all that stuff. But there wasn't as much development beyond that. But still, he served a great purpose as the main bad guy in season 4. And I am so excited to see where his story goes, what comes next in the next season, and how it's going to play out once this guy is fully defeated. But he was a great villain. Next up, at number 8, is Dustin Henderson. Now, for me, Dustin has just been the standout in all 4 of these seasons. Just his relationship dynamics with everybody else, like, has just been a whole lot of fun. And he's kind of the brains of the entire series. Like, him coming up with the names like Demogorgon Dogs or Vecna, oh, Vecna's doing this and all that stuff. He's kind of the brains of the entire season. And his relationship dynamics between him and Steve have always been just hilarious. I love the fact that him and Steve are in that friendship zone, that bromance. But the reason why he's not as high on the list is because he's only been used in that relationship as, like, on the comic relief side. Like, he hasn't been given his own emotional level with characters, besides being that comic relief and that on the funny, humorous side with all these guys. But still, just one of the most fun characters, like, throughout all 4 of these seasons. I've always enjoyed Dustin. At number 7 is Eddie Munson. And I know it might seem a little weird for me to place this guy above Dustin, but for me, he just stood out a lot more in season 4. With him having this reputation as this isolated freak by everyone else, he's accused of a murder that he didn't do, and just hated so much by the town of Hawkins. But he does all this, like, even though he has this backstory, like, he's been hiding for most of the season. And just going up to that full, fleshed out character arc at the end, where he finally makes that heroic sacrifice and saves the town of Hawkins, saves his friend Dustin, and he does it all even though the town hates him, even though he's a coward, he's been afraid for so much of the season. He makes that heroic sacrifice at the end, even though he doesn't have to. Like, that's a pretty big character arc for this guy. Even showing up in one season, I really loved what they did with him in those last couple of episodes and all of season 4. So for me, he really belongs in number 7. At number 6 is Mike Wheeler. And I know Mike has kind of been presented as the main character in most of the series, and he's kind of been given a relationship with everybody, whether it's with Eleven or the party or with Nancy or with Hopper and Joyce. He's kind of been given it with everyone. And I really liked the relationship that they started with him and Eleven, him being presented as this nerd who's bullied, is presented as this freak, and him developing that relationship with another freak, and everything that they were doing with him in season 1, even though while he is stubborn, I really loved, like, how they were developing him beyond that. However, beyond that, he hasn't really been very likable, I feel like, in these last couple of seasons, especially going into season 2, where he's trying to book out Max from the party, and especially with him being on that zone, like stubborn to everything that's going on with 11, just him being that same morning loss with 11, and him responding to everything else that's going on in seasons 3 and 4. He also hasn't really been too interesting beyond that, unless 11 has been on the screen. 5 is Max Mayfield, and this is a character that would have been a whole lot lower on the list if I had done this ranking after season 3, because I just could not stand her in season 3. She was just taking advantage of 11 too much, using her to spy on the boys, and using her as an asset to solve all the problems in the series, even though we know that there are limitations to 11's powers. But in season 4, I think that they just really improved her, showing like more of her personality, how she's been presented, like isolated herself from everybody else, seeing where that relationship, how her brother died, that relationship that she had with Billy and everybody else, and it leads to more depth in her character where we actually care about her when she's being attacked by Vecna. We actually care about her, like, to live to see another day. And I think that they really improved her story throughout all of season 4. She was the standout, going into a little bit of her backstory between her and Billy. I just absolutely loved her, and I hope that she lives to see another day, seeing where season 4 ended. At number 4 is Joyce Byers. Even though she is presented mostly as the town crazy lady, just still taking all those risks that she can, those crazy risks to find her son in season 1, or those weird crazy shints to find Hopper in season 4. No matter how crazy everybody thinks she is, she's doing everything that she can to protect the people that she loves. And she's just given off like a great personality, like, and great relationships with everybody, with her family, or whether it's with Hopper. She's just kind of been given it all, and just seeing where her story plays out with Hopper and all those little details, it's just perfect. I've just always loved Joyce, but she's just not a top 3 tier character just yet. We've made it to the top 3 with Steve Harrington. And for me, he's probably given the best character arc out of everybody in the entire series, because he was just such a jerk in season 1. And then in the next season, they started giving him a couple of these heroic moments where he's saving a couple of these children from these monsters. He's taking after the team, taking after the crew, and he's been just treated in such a heroic light in almost all these seasons. But even at the same time, they still like had him on that relationship level where we care about him. Like his relationship dynamic with Nancy, that's brought back in season 4, or even his relationship before that with Robin in season 3. They've just been doing like so much with him, showing his relationship dynamic with these guys. That's always hard to cooperate like with where he's going, like, but just like nice seeing him in that relationship side of things. Add to that, he's just been like given a couple of these great bromance relationships with Dustin. So he definitely belongs in the top 3 for me. Our runner-up here is Jim Hopper. And he's been given just such a great hero's journey throughout the series. Going back in season 1, they introduced us to the fact that he has lost his daughter, and his relationship aspects with children are now like put in more of this protective side, why he has been more hand heavy as the sheriff, and just him doing everything that he can to find somebody else's child, to find Joyce's son, and just that relationship dynamic with him and 11 throughout the series has just been perfect. Him being in this protective side. Add to that, he's just been given a lot of great humor moments, just this great fun personality, and going into season 4 where he takes all the risks that he can to escape, doing all that he can like to survive and get back to his new so-called family. He has just been perfect throughout this series and just been given a great hero's journey. But definitely coming in first place is 11. Just one of the most creative TV show characters in all of cinematic history. Millie Bobby Brown just pulled this role off very nicely. In season 1, they introduced us to her as this confused little girl, doesn't speak much, but given telekinetic powers. But they still made us grow, made us grow into her story, and like gave us a little like emotion for her. Just the fact that she's been experimented on for most of her life and trying to find out mysteries in her past, and they just made her a character that we care about. With her relationship dynamics with everybody else around her was just a whole lot of fun, especially in that first season. And her big growth and her development throughout the series has just been grown into this full fleshed out character arc. Her starting off as that confused little girl in season 1, and her fully developing into her powers, her giving this full-blown superhero story, and has just been perfect. And just seeing like how her relationship is going to play out throughout the rest of the series is just great. And I've always enjoyed Eleven. So she has had just a great hero's journey. She has great relationships with everybody around her. So she comes in at number 1. Thank you guys for watching. I've done some other Stranger Things content. If you like this one, remember, leave me down in the comments who your favorite Stranger Things character is, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.